Hey, good evening and welcome to the VeryVera show. I'm Vera Stewart and I'm so happy that you've decided to start the new year out with our show. You know, a lot of you eliminate breads as part of your New Year's resolution, and I'm hoping tonight that I can figure out a way to get you to put that back on the menu. I've got 3 wonderful recipes. The first one is a cornbread that's stuffed with some really hearty things: sausage, eggs, bacon, all your yummy favorites. It's really easy and it's going to be great with chili or soup. Then I'm going to do a tomato swirl that uses frozen bread dough, and it's going to look beautiful when you roll it up and slice it. Another thing that's wonderful for soups or chili. And then finally I'm doing a garlic bubble ring that would just be wonderful for a dinner party instead of a regular roll or a wheat roll. So join me. We're going to put all of these together. I'm going to show you a great reason why bread needs to be back on the menu and show you how easy it can be. All right, how many of you gave up bread for the new year? Well, forget that. You know, we always break those rules. So I'm giving you a recipe tonight that is so wonderful, especially if you're going to do chili or a wonderful stew or a great soup like the ones that we did last week. So this is a cornbread ring, and the possibilities are endless as far as what you can put in it. So I'm going to begin with some spring onions that I'm just going to get going in the bacon drippings that I use to bake the bacon that's going to go in the center of it. So I've got some sliced mushrooms and the spring onions, and I'm just going to let those be sauteing just until they're nice and tender in the pan over here. And then the basis for this recipe really uses something that's going to take many of you back in time. How many of us always kept Jiffy cornbread mix in the pantry? So I'm going to use that because I just love it. You can pick it up at the fresh market, and I'm going to add to that 2 eggs and 2/3 cup of milk. So these are basically just the same instructions that are on the box. So while these are sauteing, I'm just going to get the cornbread mixture mixed together. You know, the Jiffy cornbread mix has a little bit of a sweetness to it that I particularly like, especially when I'm doing a savory chili or soup or stew that I'm going to serve this with. And in terms of how it's going to present, you're just going to love the way it looks. Okay, with any cornbread recipe, you want to remember that you want to use more of a folding motion instead of just mixing it too much. So I'm just making sure all of my wet ingredients are moistened. All right, let's see how these are doing. And again, I just want to get this nice and tender, which is about where we are. So I've used about 3 or 4 mushrooms and about 1/4 cup of spring onion. So now to this, I'm going to beat 1 egg. And when you're adding a hot mixture to an egg or vice versa, you've got to get this kind of at the right temperature. So what I'm going to do here is add some of the hot vegetables to this so that this can start coming to the right temperature. And the egg is going to be used in this as actually a means of holding this mixture together in the center of the bread. So now I'm going to put all of the egg mixture in with this. And this again is just a way to hold all of this together. All right, so let me turn that off. This is going to be part of what goes in the center. All right, so I've got just a regular cake pan, and as you can see, I've baked a lot of cakes in this pan. So I'm going to spray it with a coated pan spray. This has a little bit of flour in it because the last thing we want is for this to stick to the pan when we get ready to free it out. Now I'm going to spoon half of the cornbread mixture into the pan, and then we'll start layering all the goodie on the top. This really is a wonderful dish that you could even do almost as a breakfast bread as well. All right, so now we've got half the pan full. I'm going to put some grated shredded cheddar cheese. I've got about 3 or 4 slices of bacon that I fried. And aren't these your favorite ingredients? I know they are mine. All right, now I'm going to add what we cooked that's going to go in the center. The mushrooms, the onions, and the egg. And again, this is just, and this freezes really well too. You know, I love to tell you when recipes will and will not freeze. Okay, let's put the rest of that bacon in there. I don't want that to go to waste. And now we're just going to top it off with the rest of the cornbread mixture. And then this is going to go into a 400-degree oven for about 20 minutes. And you'll let it sit in the pan for just a few minutes to come nice enough and cool so you can invert it over. And then when we come back, I'm going to show you how beautiful it's going to look when you slice it. So again, a 400-degree oven. This is going to rise up. It's going to make the kitchen smell great. So come back. We're going to get started on the garlic bubble ring. All right, welcome back. I've got that cornbread in the oven and it's smelling wonderful. And now we're going to move on to a garlic bubble ring. And it's kind of like monkey bread if you've had that before. And you know, I got so excited about this recipe, I bought a new green pan because the set today is kind of woodsy. I'm so thrilled with the way everything looks. You know, 3 Monkeys and Aiken is helping me with the set. So I just wore my green sweater, got my green pan, and we're ready to go with this bubble ring. All right, so I've prepared the pan with the same pan spray that's got a little bit of a flour coating in it. And then these are the frozen bread doughs that you buy in the frozen food section. And I have just let them thaw out just by themselves. And so over the last couple of hours, they've probably doubled in size. And that's what we're going to use as the basis for the recipe. So in a bowl, I'm going to put about 3/4 of a cup of melted butter. I've got 1 beaten egg. I'm going to use about a teaspoon of garlic powder. And if you're not a big garlic fan, you can make that a little bit less, or you could use a different spice, maybe onion powder. And then about a teaspoon of dried parsley. All right, so let me just give that a whirl. And this is what we're going to dip all the little sections in. All right. So this has kind of come as nice and porous and is thawed out really great. So I'm going to pull enough off and just make it into a nice ball. Just roll it long enough that it kind of comes together. Now we're just going to immerse this in the mixture. And now we're going to start building our ring in this pan. And you know, this is why I actually decided that I wanted to do a segment on breads, because I love to go, when I go to a restaurant and they bring wonderful bread to the table, that's my first impression of where I've gone. And you know, there's nothing like it. I know that I could probably name several restaurants that you know too, that you can always count on the bread being wonderful when they bring it to the table. So why wouldn't you want to do the same thing when you're having people over? And you know, if it's this easy, why not? You know, we haven't even had to make the bread dough. So again, it's just pulling pieces off, and you should be able to get, we're gonna get about 8 servings out of this. It's gonna be a really nice big roll. This is gonna bake in a 350-degree oven for approximately 40 to 45 minutes. The other thing that I've done is Fresh Market always has the most wonderful cheeses, and I kind of spoil myself sometimes on spending a little bit too much on cheese, but I love it. And I've always bought the shaved Parmesan, the regular shredded Parmesan, but they had some wonderful cheese this time that was like a blend of Parmesan, and it's nice and shaved. So as we go through this and I make the other rings, I'm going to take these shavings and I'm going to go over the top with this. And if you don't feel like your color distributed well enough, you can always take a little bit of the parsley, because it's not going to hurt the flavor or the recipe, to add a little bit more. And when this pops up in this green pan, it's going to look great. So I'll keep working on this. You come back, we're going to do a tomato swirl. Welcome back. We're going to put together a tomato swirl bread that is going to be yummy and scrumptious, a completely different look from the two that we've done, but I couldn't wait to show you the cornbread ring. We're going to flip it over in the next segment, but I wanted you to see just how beautiful it looks on the top and smells great. So we'll be looking at that in just a little bit. But I'm back on the frozen bread doughs, and don't they look so pretty? I love to work with these. I'm going to flour my countertop here, and again, I absolutely adore working on these countertops. They're just terrific, and everything cleans up really well. Now we'll see if I can manage to get through this segment without having flour on my sweater. All right, so what we're going to do is roll this out to about a 7 to 12 inch rectangle. So just get the flour incorporated into the dough, and then you just want to put a little bit of pressure on the dough itself before you get started. That way you're not spending as much time trying to get the rectangle to roll out exactly right. And again, don't be afraid to put a little pressure on that rolling pin. We're looking for about a ruler size length and 7 inches in diameter. And these loaves have been, you know, thawed overnight, and then I just put them out on the counter at room temperature right before we got started on the show tonight. Okay, I think we're just about there. And this recipe for the tomato swirl and all the other recipes today are available on NBC26.tv, and just click on Entertainment, The VeryVera Show, and it'll take you straight to the recipe. This recipe actually makes two, so I'm going to get one started. Now let me tell you about this. These are the wonderful tomatoes, marinated tomatoes. I had the best time at Fresh Market yesterday when I was looking for the ingredients for this. The sun-dried julienne cut tomatoes, these have already been marinated with a lot of herbs in it. And you know, one of the things that's so nice about having the Fresh Market in Augusta is that some of the unusual ingredients that you can't find at a regular grocery store, you can find there. It makes, to me, the opportunity to create recipes even a lot more fun, because sometimes I'll see something that I want to try, and I'll kind of maybe look through some of my cookbooks looking for a recipe that could incorporate something I've seen there. Now, as you can see, I took a paper towel so I could blot some of the excess oil from the marinade. I actually put it through a strainer before I put it on the paper towel, but you want to try to eliminate some of the excess oil in the marinade. All right, so we're going to evenly distribute that around. Now I'm back to that wonderful shaved, and actually this was Parmesan Romano and Asiano cheese, and I'm just going to sprinkle a nice little filling of that. And then I'm going to put some fresh basil in this as well. And I've left about 1/2 of an inch to do the roll up on that. All right. So I want to make sure that this looks really good. So what we're going to do, I'm going to get started on the basil. And when we come back from the break, I'm going to show you how to roll this up, because look at that basil leaf. Is that amazing? I may do whole basil, I may cut some of this up. So come back and join us after the break. I'm going to do this jelly roll fashion and show you how to get it ready for the pan. My favorite part of dinner is the bread. So let's look at some of the differences in breads and how you eat them properly at the table. In this bread basket, I've got just a plain roll, a hard roll, and a piece of sliced bread. So the first thing you want to do is take the bread, the butter from the table, and you want to put it directly on your bread plate and not directly on the bread. As far as eating this and serving it properly, the hardest thing to work with is the hard roll. You want to be sure you hold it over your bread plate to break it, and take only small pieces at once. Again, use your bread knife to butter what you want to use, and eat little pieces at a time. Whenever you're eating bread, be sure you wipe your fingers under the table, and always place your butter knife back on the left side of the plate. Welcome back. All right, at the last segment, I was putting the tomatoes, the marinated tomatoes. I've got the wonderful 3-blend shaved cheese from Fresh Market, and then I've used the basil, the fresh basil, kind of put that across. Now we're going to roll it up jelly roll fashion. So you just start at the end closest to you, and you want a tight roll. So just use both of your hands to just keep rolling and moving as you go. This dough is so nice and soft. Don't be afraid of it. Just go with it. Now, I want to tuck in the 2 sides, and then we're going to transfer it to the sheet pan. So the best way to do that is to put one hand under all the way to the middle, and then grab the other end, and it's just going to easily transfer. All right, then the last step is an egg wash. And this is just 1 egg that I've beaten. And this is just gonna make that nice glowy look on the top. It also calls for putting cornmeal on the top, just to kind of give it like a crust. But here again, I'm gonna use the wonderful Jiffy cornbread mix that we had. You know, you can pick these up 4 boxes for $1 most of the time, so it really comes in handy to have these in the pantry. All right, so that's ready to go, and I'm going to move down and show you about how to get the bread ready. But I need to get my butter out of the fridge. So let me put that down and rinse my hands off real quick from the egg. All right, so we've got a beautiful display of breads. I went ahead and cut the cornbread roll that we did earlier, and as you can see, it just slices like a pound cake, and you've got all the wonderful filling on the middle. It looks really great. This is the tomato swirl that I just did. This is the one that I baked earlier today, and I'm just going to take a serrated knife, and you're just cutting it just like you would any other French or Italian bread loaf. And as you can see, you've got a nice little filling of tomato in there. And this would be great if you were doing spaghetti. I mean, it's just an awesome way to show your guests that you spent a little extra time doing something, you know, different for the bread part of the meal. So I'll be arranging those on this beautiful tray. You know, 3 Monkeys in Aiken is assisting me with all of the beautiful decor that I've got behind me and the things that I'm using to showcase the food today, and it's just turned out beautifully. Now this is the garlic bubble ring that we did, and this I'm just going to invert onto the board, and look at there. Isn't that pretty? Now one of the things that you could do with this would be to put it on a plate and just let the guests pull it apart. But just to show how beautiful this will do, that's obviously a very large roll, but you can cut these into slices. And this can also go on your display board. So this is just a really nice, very light, wonderful yeast flavored bread. And you know, your guests are not going to have any idea that you didn't do it yourself. So I'll be continuing to get that ready for display purposes. But you know, just a variety of the different types of textures. This platter, I just loved that Three Monkeys brought over. It's, you know, it's just very unique looking and just the right size. So I've done butter in a couple of different ways. The butter mold that you can pick up at any specialty food store, or you can actually get them from online, but you've just softened your butter and then put it in the freezer, and then these little butter pats, a variety, are going to just pop right out. So as you can see, I've taken you right off of that diet with bread and butter today, but hopefully you will see that bread can be the star of the show. So join me next Saturday, but remember, whatever you do, do it in good taste. Thanks for joining me.